Hi, Janet here. I want to take you through varnishing your work today. I'm going to have a go at finishing off a piece that I did not so long ago. This is the one here, pretty bright. So I really want to bring the colour out, highlight it, make it the feature. You can see it there. So I want to take you through a process I'm going to do with this one. Involving a number of steps. So I'm going to be using a clear glaze medium, and this one I have been told if you put it on before you put your varnish on, it makes it removable. Haven't tried that one out. I will try it out with another video, but I'm going to put this one on first. And then for this piece, I think I'm going to use a satin finish, so it's not fully matte, not high gloss, somewhere in between. Should have a really nice sheen to it. And here I've got the matte and the satin and the gloss, but I'm going to go with the satin today. See how that looks. I can always add a gloss layer too if I need to, if I feel like it's not really popping enough. So in this video, we're going to go through what you need to do to prepare the area as well. So I've decided on the finish that I want. And then we're going to put the clear glaze medium on. This is optional. And then I'm going to run you through a couple of coats. We're going to have a look at the finished product. And this is this little picture is part of a series of 3, a triptych. And I've got little frames and I'll show you what they look like at the end. So yeah, enjoy. Okay, so we're ready to get started. We're going to prepare this guy first. So this is the first one I'm doing out of the 3. Just got a clean, dry, thick brush, and I'm literally, it's dry, there's nothing on it. Just going to remove any excess dust, dirt. This one was done recently, so it's pretty clean. You might even need a very slightly damp cloth to clean away anything. And I'm going to start by taping the sides. Now you don't have to tape the sides, you could just varnish the whole lot. So these sides, I'm just attaching the tape, not even flush to the very end. The reason I'm doing this is can be very tricky to paint over varnish. Sometimes, you know, you get a certain effect that way. You get this really luminous effect by putting on layers of glaze and varnish and then painting over and then doing the same and doing the same. Can be pretty impressive sort of look. But for the edges here, I just want the option of being able to paint them easily later on if I need to. So they're going into a little frame, which is great, but if for any reason I need to take them out of that frame and hang them without, I can paint a nice block colour on the edge. So I'm going to keep going and tape the sides of all 3, and then we'll look at applying our clear glaze medium. So we've taped all the edges up of each piece, and the tape I used is just regular old masking tape. I picked it up from a hardware store. I think house painters use it. It's nothing flash, nothing special. So they're all taped up now, ready to go, and that's optional. You don't even have to do that. So we're on to the clear glaze medium now. So I'm using this one, but there are all sorts of brands that do a great clear glaze medium. I'm using a very clean bowl, as cleanest I can find, and I've given it another clean. And I actually use brushes specifically for glazing and varnishing. This is because the varnish will find any pigment that might be on the brush or in the container, and it will spread it across your work. If there's a tiny bit of red on a brush, it'll pick it up and you'll see it somewhere else in your work where you don't want it. So I only use my varnish brush for varnish and my clear glaze brushes for clear glaze, and then that way I know there's been no pigment added and it's not going to discolour the clear glaze or the varnish as it goes on. I've found this very important as a step because we're finishing our work, we're not creating an effect with a pigmented clear glaze medium, so that's important. So I'm going to just add some medium to my bowl, and this is going to dry really thin as well, so I don't want a thick layer. It's just undiluted for this particular brand. You have to read the instructions, and you can see it sort of has a bit of a whitening effect over the coloured parts. We'll just come up here to the darker bits. Kind of see it's just putting down a layer of, looks like white, but it will dry clear, so don't be alarmed if it's coming up whitish. I've got a little and that one, and I'm just not being too careful. I'm going in different directions for this one because the paint has been applied in all sorts of different directions too. And it's important to find a brush that doesn't shed. Might need to keep some tweezers handy if you're not familiar with the brush. And you can see we've already picked up a little bit of colour on this one. So this clear glaze is going to help us seal it so we don't lose that colour in subsequent varnishings as well. So you can see what's been done and what hasn't by the shine, but usually I start at a certain point, work my way down. Today, just to illustrate those darker points and how it looks, I just a little bit off-piste. So make sure it's completely covered. Nice thin layer, not too complicated. I'm going to wash my brush out and continue on with the others. So before we continue on, just wanted to show you how much colour has been picked up. So I clean this out before every new clear glaze application for each one, and it's picking up quite a bit of colour. A couple of reasons could be for this as well, that I needed to leave it to cure a bit longer. It's only had a couple of days. Probably best to leave it 72 hours or more. So that sort of gives you an idea that you will pick up some of the colour if it's not properly dried and cured. And this is with acrylics. So we're applying this to acrylics. I just wanted to show you how much is picked up there. But don't get too concerned if it has had plenty of time to cure and you still pick up a little bit of colour off your acrylic work. So what I did in that last painting is, knowing that I'm picking up quite a bit of the stronger colour, I clear glazed the lighter parts first and then went over the darker bits. Then that way I wouldn't be smearing the darker colour into the light, and keep it all nice and clean that way. Okay, so we're back now. We've got our clear glaze medium that has dried. I find, you know, it's not that hot, not that cold today, about 20 degrees Celsius, It's dried in about half an hour, and I can really run my hand over it. There's no sticky parts, and you can sort of tell the wet bits from the dry bits in the light. So that seems about ready. We're going to give it a go. So I've got my satin varnish. I've cleaned the bowl and used a kitchen towel, scraping it through and checking for any colour that might be left behind. And I've got my varnish brush that I don't use for any of my painting with pigments. I don't want to be spreading weird and wonderful colours through this one, even though it's sort of got a weird and wonderful look on its own. We want to keep that. So I haven't actually put much in there. I'm going to put some more in. And I've seen some people pour the varnish onto their work and then just spread it around with a brush. I tend to be a bit more conservative. I'm holding it over the painting, and I'm just going to start from one end. So let's see that coming into view. I'm starting with my lighter sections up the top here. And I'm doing a bit of a crisscross. Now for some of my work that has really definite brush strokes, the brush strokes are going in a particular direction, for those ones I actually put the varnish on with the brush strokes. But for this one today, there's a real mixture of brush strokes. I've used some free flow acrylics. There's not really a set pattern or a direction. Just doing a bit of a crisscrossy action. I want to cover the entire piece, not leave any bits out, and be quite generous. So I'm really loading up my brush. And what you don't want to do is let it dry a bit and then go over it again. This can leave you with a really cloudy finish on the varnish, particularly noticeable on the darker parts. So you want to keep it all wet. Don't go over any sections if you don't need to. Great, so it's been over an hour. It says leave a minimum of an hour between coats. This is our first coat. It'll be finer. It'll probably be uneven, just very difficult to get it even on the first go. But I'm already really happy with the colour that's popping. This is looking pretty cool. And I don't know if you noticed that when I was putting the varnish on, colour wasn't being picked up and put onto the brush, and that's because of that clear glaze medium that we applied first. So it really sealed. I'm just going to turn this one around so you can see more. Got our satin varnish again. This is for coat 2. It might take longer to dry, this coat. And you've got to be very careful when you're checking it's dry, because you don't want to leave any drag marks if there's some parts not quite set. And you can sort of drag the varnish around. So again, for this part here, I've got quite a lot of weird brush strokey angles, so I'm just following that pattern. I'm just going to be careful you don't leave any big drips behind. You know, when I'm like this and I'm moving it across, and with a big dollop of varnish, I don't want to have any drips anywhere else on my work. Particularly important for those bigger pieces. This smaller one, I can kind of see where they are and fix them as I'm going. So nice, and just same sort of technique as before. I'm slapping it over the edges. I've got that tape there, so that'll be removed at the end. Okay, so we're back. I've waited 24 hours for this one to really cure, although it dried fairly quickly, but I've left it that extra bit of time just to harden and seal. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the result. I've got a light source, a couple of light sources there, and you can see a bit of a sheen, but not super high gloss or anything. It's just kind of there as I rotate around. The colours are really popping, really happy with those. So pretty happy with the effect. Looking at it, you know, I could put another coat of the satin on again, really add another layer to that, or I could put on a coat of gloss over the top and really shine it up. I think these colours lend themselves, you know, in the way that I've done them, to a higher gloss as well. And it really is, you know, when you've done the work, having a look at it and seeing what fits best, and it's trial and error when you start as well. So have a play with it, it's really good fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop them in their frames shortly, but I've still got my tape on. So I'm going to take the tape off. Don't know if you can see the shiny edge and then a very matte surface. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that masking tape and get ready to pop them in the frames.